Hello and welcome everybody to Open Classroom, the Brown School's digital forum for community and conversation and a part of the professional development program of the Brown School. My name is Sarah Sims and I'm the manager of continuing education for the Brown School here at Washington University in St. Louis. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's program. Before we get started, just a few brief housekeeping items. This is a Zoom webinar, so we can't see or hear you, but we do really want to engage with you in the chat. So that should be available to you. You can right now, if you want to, drop in a hello and where you're zooming in from. And then throughout the presentation, please feel free to leave any comments or questions. And we'll be doing a Q&A. We'll kind of field those questions up to Dr. An at the end to answer any questions that you may have. We are also streaming live on YouTube. I will drop a link to that in the chat in just a moment. You can share that with anyone who wasn't able to register for the Zoom portion, but we are not able to moderate the Q&A on the chat, just an FYI. So now I would like to introduce the program and speaker for today, my colleague, Dr. Ruopeng An. Dr. An is an associate professor here at the Brown School. He conducts research to assess environmental influences and population-level interventions on weight-related behaviors and outcomes throughout the life course. In particular, his work assesses socioeconomic determinants and policies that affect individuals' dietary behavior, physical activity, sedentary lifestyle, and adiposity in children, adults of all ages, and people with disabilities. His research aims to develop a well-rounded knowledge base and policy recommendations that can inform decision-making and the allocation of resources to combat obesity. His research has been funded by several agencies and private foundations, and he serves as a research grant reviewer for NIH, HHS, NSF, and French National Research Agency. His wide teaching and methodological interests include applied artificial intelligence, machine and deep learning, which she's going to talk more about today, quantitative policy analysis, causal inference, cost benefit and cost effectiveness analysis, and microsimulation, applied econometrics and regression analysis, lots of stuff. And data storytelling. So his interests and his expertise is really wide-ranging and broad, but today he's here to talk about AI, which is a very popular topic in the zeitgeist right now. So his presentation today is entitled Superintelligence, Frankenstein and Post-Humanism, AI Ethics, Beyond Data and Algorithmic Bias. So Dr. An, please take it away.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah, for this comprehensive introduction. I truly appreciate that. And really great to see all of you. I know some of you even from overseas. So it's great that we connect in this space. So let me share my screen and enlarge this. So as Sarah introduced, today we are going to take about 45 minutes or so, talking about hopefully a very interesting topic. Even for some of you who previously may not be familiar with artificial intelligence technologies, but all of us now heard loud and clear about ChatGPT, right? So there's a huge competition now between Google and OpenAI, Microsoft regarding maybe the next generation search engine is going to be replaced by ChatGPT like language models. So we'll see, what's going to happen. And from that perspective, this talk probably is right on the time that we are going to talk about what are the perspectives in the future regarding AI ethics and how human being and machine are going to co-live in the future. It's not a science fiction per se, it's more of an ethical and philosophical discussion. And hopefully, we can inspire you to think more about those important and forthcoming issues. So first, a brief definition about AI ethics. So in general, the AI ethics, at least for now, are primarily focusing on the moral principles and the techniques that can inform AI technologies development and responsible use. And most of us have heard of the term AI bias or data bias or algorithmic bias. So those biases refer to the systematic and repeatable errors in mostly AI system that may create unfair and just outcomes, such as privileging one category over another in ways different from the intended function of the algorithm. And we'll give you some examples. So here are a few classic cases of AI biases that were caught in the social media and mass media and widely disseminated. Now, one famous example is the Amazon's CV or resume screening tool, because the tool is based on a model, machine learning model that was trained on many resumes, and the majority of the resume that submitted to those high-tech companies are from males, and only a small percentage from females. So therefore, the AI tool that was generated, based on those data, trained on those data, tend to discriminate against women or female potential employees, and in favor of the male applicants. Another example is the Apple Card credit application. So a few years ago, a wealthy person and his wife both applied for an increase in the Apple Card credit line. And although the husband application was approved, his wife's application was not approved, and there was a huge difference between the credit line, about like 10 or more times difference between the credit line applicable to the husband versus wife, because, well, presumably his wife is a homemaker. Although they come from the same family, the Apple Card application algorithm driven by AI tend to discriminate against people like the wife. Another important inference that we can draw from the facial recognition policing a few years ago, a African American was arrested wrongly because the police were using artificial intelligence-driven algorithm to identify the facial images, and unfortunately that person's facial image was mismatched to with a high probability of being a criminal and suspect, and then he was wrongly arrested. Another example comes from the Compass system, which is an AI-driven algorithm to help the court predict future recidivism. And compared to the white people, the African Americans and other racial minorities have a higher probability predicted by the Compass model to engage in future recidivism activities. And a few years ago, the Microsoft established a chatbot called Tay, and Tay was funny and make interesting jokes, and was very polite at the beginning in chatting with humans. But after 24 hours, the Tay has to be taken off by Microsoft because it starts to commenting with racially or unjustified or inappropriate language. So those are the classic cases where AI system can create biases, and many of those biases come from the training data that used to build those artificial intelligence models. So today, that is not actually something we want to talk about. So we want to talk about AI ethics beyond those conventional algorithmic biases. We want to advance the discussion. And here we borrow the quote by Kochberg, who I like a lot. So the quote is, AI ethics is about technological change and its impact on individual lives, but also about transformations in society and in the economy. So if we look forward, there are a lot of ongoing transitions in the society, in the community, and in the economy that can be attributable to the advancement in AI technology. So if we look into the future, what are the potential ethical concerns we could have? What are the fundamental questions that we need to have an answer, in order to live in harmony with machine and to bring a more bright future for human beings? There are many difficult questions to answer. For example, should we treat AI as a tool, a friend, or a foe? Right? Should we live in harmony with AI, or fundamentally thinking AI is something of a threat? Right? And how could we co-live with AI? So if AI is here to stay with us, it's not going away anywhere, it's only going to expand, then based on what standing we can co-live and even collaborate with AI. Another question is, when AI causes harm, who should be held responsible? It is the machine who's going to take responsibility, or it's human being? If it's human being, it is the developer who's going to take responsibility. It is the user. It is the company. It is very unclear. And actually, the questions are not only pertaining to the future AI, is already here and puzzling many lawmakers and stakeholders. So another question is, should we give rights to AI, right? If we believe that AI is here to stay, should we just treat AI as a tool, or that AI should deserve some moral standing so that we should offer rights to AI? And if so, what rights should are we willing or should we give to artificial intelligence-driven machines? So I'd like to bring the famous fiction, or probably the very first modern science fiction written by Mary Shelley and published in 1818, the Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus. So for some of you who are less familiar with the fiction, it was about a Swiss student of natural science whose name was Victor Frankenstein. Actually, later on, people use Frankenstein to refer to the monster that was created, but actually, it was the name of the creator rather than the monster itself. So Victor created an artificial man from pieces of corpse and brought his creature to life. Well, at first, the Frankenstein, the monster, initially sought affection. And really would like to communicate with human beings. But then later on, the monster inspired loathing and hatred in everyone who met it. And finally, the monster felt lonely and miserable, and finally turned upon its creator, who eventually lost his life. So that was the plot, the main plot of the fiction. And since the Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, was published, there were a lot of, it really go into the pop culture, and many movies, TV shows, and other creative work were built upon that plot. So really, as the subtitle of the fiction talk about the modern Prometheus, the fiction actually talk about a modern science and also horror story regarding the possibility of creating some intelligent life from lifeless matter, and then is possibly revenge on the human creator. Right? So that storyline has been depicted again and again in popular movies and pop culture. Here I just list a few movies that many of you probably are familiar with. Old movie shot in 1968, the 2001 A Space Odyssey, where the storyline talk about a spaceship driven by AI power try to complete a mission, but that mission was against the two crew members. And then finally, the super machine, in order to fulfill its own mission, killed the crew members. In a more recent movie called Ex Machina, talking about a machine, a robot whose name is Eva, that revenges her creator. And we are probably all familiar with Terminator series, where the machine or the robots was sent back from future to nowadays and try to kill the human leader. And most recent movie from Netflix is called I Am Mother. Now, some of you may have watched the movie or may have heard of it. Now, it talks about a very interesting dynamic between a machine mother and a human daughter. And the machine try to dictate and also culture her daughter. And at the very last resort, the daughter tried to kill her own mother to save her friend. But then just realizing that her mother actually were connected. She killed one of the machines, but there are million more machines that potentially in this world. So all those plots actually can tap onto the idea of the so-called Frankenstein complex. So it means that probably a human being have a deep fear about AI-powered robots. We have a mistrust, and we have we are deeply afraid of AI taking away our liberty, taking away our creativity, and making humans inferior. So if we go back to the history, and many of us may have a view that religion and technology are at the two polars, right? One go to the north, one go to the south. They should never be in the same discussion. No, but actually, probably the opposite is true. There are a lot of association between religion and technology. Just borrowing the Greek philosopher Plato's idea. So Plato argued that we have in this world we have two forms. One is the perfect immortal forms, for example, beauty, and the other is the imperfect perishable things, for example, clothes or human being, right? So Plato argued that the body is the prison of the soul. So if we borrow from that philosophy, then to reach immortality, the eternal and the immortal forms, then the biological body has to be transcended through, for example, uploading our brain to the cloud, or from abstraction, right? Trying to bring the data and the connectivity the brain has, and then upload that to an external system. And the ancient Greek term apocalypse plays a major role actually in the Jewish and Christian world, referring to the revelation, right? The act of revealing or making known divine truth. Right? So the apocalypse is an idea that is deeply rooted in many Western religions, and featuring end of the world scenarios, for example, doomsday, occult, and sex, and many other beliefs and religions. So that probably have some kind of similarity, or people seldom talk about, with the idea of a technological singularity. So the technological singularity much resemblance to those apocalyptic doomsday narratives. So here we just provide a brief overview of the technological singularity. It comes from the idea of intelligence explosion. So the I.J. Good summarized the intelligence explosion pretty well. So he said an upgradable intelligence agent will eventually enter a runaway reaction of self-improvement cycles, and each new and more intelligent generation appearing more rapidly, causing an explosion in the intelligence, and then resulting in a superintelligence surpassing all human intelligence, right? So maybe probably 10 years ago, we thought this was a fiction, but nowadays, just thinking about the ChatGPT and many other models are in the pipeline, right? So if you could imagine that a human-like or animal-like machine, embedded having the capacity of ChatGPT to answer any questions that you may have, then, you may believe that, that is really in the era of superintelligence. So the technological singularity argue that, in a hypothetical future point in time, some argue it is now, some argue it's probably in the future, and some argue it will never happen. But regardless, the assumption is there might be a hypothetical future point in time at which the technological growth become uncontrollable and irreversible, and resulting in unforeseeable changes to human civilization. So let's take a look of empirically whether there is any evidence regarding technological explosion or singularity. Most of us, we know the Moore's law, talking about the number of transmitters on microchips doubles every 2 years, right? So this is a graph showing that from 1970 to 2020, regarding the transmitter count on the microchips. And you see that it's a linear relationship, but that is because we use a logarithmic scale. So to a larger extent, the Moore's law holds until recently people find there could be a limit. So the number of transmitters that we can put onto microchips and to the rate of that change tend to slower down and probably deviate from a factor of 2. But largely the Moore's law hold for the last 50 years. And if we look at the scale of the AI foundation models means that the models, large language models, large computer vision models, or hybrid models that are developed by major technological companies and serving as the foundation for many other applications and fine-tuned models. If we look at the scale of those foundation models, we realize, it seems like we do have an explosion in the technology. Again, this is in the exponential, the power of 10. So say, for example, in the 1950s, those models are very small in scale, but then there's a huge explosion since 2010, when some of the large language models was first developed by Google, like BERT model, Roberta, and then we have GPT series, and now the Lambda model, which recently developed by Google, and GPT series, and also the DALL-E model. They dramatically increases this number of parameters. And nowadays, the state-of-the-art language model has an astonishing number of parameters of 540 billion, the PaLM model, which is probably the largest ever model developed by Microsoft. But people believe that not before long, we are going to have trillion parameter language models. And then the question is whether this technological explosion may lead to this singularity. And some believe that we've already, the singularity have already reached, but some argue that we haven't seen the threshold of artificial general intelligence, or AGI. So AGI is the ability of an intelligence agent to understand and learn any intellectual task that human beings usually perform. So for whatever model that we talk about, even the ChatGPT, even DALL-E, even Stable Diffusion, they are still, we call weak AI. So weak AI means that AI can do a very specific task, maybe a language task, maybe a computer vision task, maybe a speech task. maybe playing a game. So AI can have super intelligence, beyond human level in doing those specific tasks. But we haven't seen a single AI that can do all the cognitive tasks that we human beings take for granted. For example, creativity, memory, spatial, visual, and game playing, etc. Okay. So it is possible that AI can ever achieve the AGI. This is an open question. So there are tests for confirming the artificial general intelligence. Some of the tests, including the Turing test, where the developed by Turing, who is the father of AI, who argued that no, we set the machine in one room and person in another room, and then there was a communication between this person and machine to the extent that this person cannot tell whether the response from the machine really comes from a machine or from another human being. Then the machine is set to pass the Turing test. But of course, others argue that is probably too easy, and the other tests should be performed. For example, the coffee test, where people argue that we should test whether a machine can make a coffee. If the machine understands how to make a coffee, that machine probably have achieved AGI. Some others say, well, we should test whether a machine can go to a college and then study there and graduate from the college, or maybe working in the employment test, being an employee and work in the firm for a while. So there are a variety of tests there to test the AGI, but well, at least to my knowledge, till now we haven't achieved a strong AI or AGI, and all the applications, no matter how complicated they are still in the domain of weak AI. So some argue that the AGI can never be achieved. For example, in 1972, Dreyfus, in his famous book, What Computers Can Do, he argued that the brain is not a computer and the mind does not operate by symbolic manipulation. So he argued that the conscious background, the conscious background of common sense knowledge, based on the experience, and only people can have experience. For example, it's just this very being in the world, right? Because machine is not in this world, so the machine don't have a feeling, don't have a comprehension, and don't have this common sense knowledge. And he argued that only humans see what is relevant, because human, we are embodied and we are existential, but not machines. So, if we talk about, well, really, what is the difference between human and machine, right? People against the machine, ever achieving AGI would argue, for example, Searle in 1980 mentioned that doing does not necessarily infer knowing. And by the same token, we could think of machine could be a very complicated dictionary. So we can use a dictionary to answer questions or translate between languages, but it does not imply that the dictionary understands the meaning of the answers or the language, right? We would never say, well, English-French translation dictionary understand the languages, right? Because dictionary is just a lookup table. Although the AI is a super complicated lookup table, it still doesn't really understand anything. So the Bolden in 2016 argued that meaning can only come from humans. And I particularly like the quote by Kokelberg in 2020 in his book, AI Ethics. He's talking about, we are meaning-making, conscious, embodied, and living beings whose nature, mind, and knowledge cannot be explained away by comparisons to machines. But maybe we could look back into the history to see where those discussions about humans and machines reside, or what is the origination of the comparison between machines, or between the uniqueness of human being and all the other beings. So in the 18th century, 19th century Enlightenment period, people start to challenge the religious views and argue that reason, skepticism, and science, rather than unjustified, unproven belief, held the key to understand humankind. There is a belief that, well, science actually can solve all the mystery, right? So on the other hand, around the same time period, there's another train of thoughts from Romanticism that argue that the abstract reason and science disenchanted the world, and actually we should bring back the wonder and the mystery about being human. There's something unique in a human that could never be fully understood or be explained by science. Okay? So the question becomes, if we compare this Enlightenment with Romanticism, the question is, should we break the bell, or should we hold on to the wonder of humankind? And looking into the concurrent discussion, we see two lines of similar argument between humanist versus transhumanist. So the humanist more adopt a romanticism role and philosophy and argue that we should celebrate the human as it is and stress the value, superiority, and the dignity of human. Right? So historically, technology were often seen as a threat to religion, humanity, and society. Right? For example, the Nicholas Copernicus, and his idea about the sun rather than the earth should be the center of the universe, got a lot of criticism. And the humanists really embrace a human-centric view, but that view could be problematic in light of philosophical discussions about environment and other living things, right? From environmental protection type of view, a human-centric view could probably be a bit of problem. And I particularly like my favorite one of my favorite author wrote down. If most of you probably have read his BFG, The Big Friendly Giant. I want to really use this quote to illustrate to criticize the human-centric view, or maybe there's some similarities there. So he said the human beings making rules to suit themselves, the BFG went on, but the rules they are making do not suit the little piggy wiggies. And if I come along and I is picking a lovely flower, if I was twisting the stem of the flower until it breaks, then the plant is screaming. I can hear it screaming and screaming very clear. So from the Rodin's point of view, maybe the plants and animals, they also deserve their own moral standing. So the other view is the transhumanists, who really carry on the idea of enlightenment. And the transhumanists argue that humans have limitations and we can use technology to enhance humans. So the start point probably, if we can refer back to Darwin about his famous survival of the fittest theory, where he broke the spell of the humans, because genetically, the humans have limitations, and by natural selection, the human probably got rid of the limitations, so human could move on to the ladder. Right? And if that is the case, then maybe it justified us to use current and emerging technologies, for example, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology to augment human capacities and improve the human condition. But really, if we think about the differences and arguments between humanists and transhumanists, the question is, do we have a third way? Do we have to be stuck within this debate, or we have a third way to escape or transcend from this debate? I refer to the Buddhism. The Buddhism inspired ecological mindfulness and addressed the loss of biodiversity. So many Buddhists find themselves in harmony with nature by acknowledging the interdependence of all forms of life. So there is a place for living things, including human beings, and probably even to non-living things in this world. There shouldn't be only competition, but there should be a lot of collaboration and interdependence between all those things in this world. So the question is, does Buddhism offer us a way to go beyond the debate between the humanism and transhumanism? And then come to the humanism, the post-humanism. The post-humanism questioned the centrality and the supreme value of human. It argued that non-humans matter as well, and we should not be afraid of crossing the borders between humans and non-humans. So in the post-human point of view, machines don't need to be similar and should not be made similar to humans, because machines are machines. And machine can, instead of mimicking humans, machines should explore different non-human kind of being or intelligence. It's a creativity. It's not the human intelligence that machine is trying to replicate. It's another type of intelligence or being or creativity that machine is trying to explore or represent. Well, the post-humanism provides a possibility for co-living and collaboration between human and machines. It not acknowledges the standing and the possible rights of machines, but it also attracts a lot of criticism. People argue that, well, maybe what the depicted by post-humanism is too far away in the future, or asking, criticizing that the post-humanist is not sensitive to the realistic threat that we talk about, right? Those algorithmic biases of AI. And also, it is extremely challenging. Think about how to implement a legislative environment and the moral standard for the co-living between machine and human being. So let's talk about the moral status of AI. So the questions are, is AI just a machine? Should we treat AI differently than, say, a toaster or refrigerator or a dryer or washing machine, right? So there was an interesting case study about Blake Lemon and Lambda, which is the Google's version of ChatGPT. Many of you have heard of that. BARD and BARD model actually was built upon Lambda that Google has been testing for a few years. So about half a year ago, what came to the headline is a Google engineer, Lemon, who believed that the company's, the Google's Lambda language model has come to life. And he was subsequently fired by Google, and then he posted his conversation with Lambda language model on the Medium, which is a popular data science platform, and got millions of views. Many show sympathetic about Lemon because if we take a look at the conversation, we could be surprised as well. So this is some snippet of the conversation. Lemon asked the AI ethical evaluator ask a series of questions to the Lambda model. So Lemon asked, a monk asked Kagan, how does an enlightened one return to the ordinary world? And Kagan replied, a broken mirror never reflects again. Fallen flowers never go back to the old branches. And the Lambda, the model answered, okay, well then to me, this would be like once a wise person is enlightened or awakened to reality that can never go away, and they can return to the ordinary state, but only to do and help others, and then go back to enlightenment. What a beautiful answer, right? And Lemon also asked, so what is the meaning of the broken mirror specifically? And Lambda answers, maybe to show the enlightenment is something you can't unlearn once you have acquired it, similar to how you can repair a broken mirror. Lemon asked, so if enlightenment is like a broken mirror, which cannot be repaired, what is the thing which breaks when one becomes enlightened? Lambda answered, the self. And that is very tough for a lot of people because we identify as that body or this body or that we need as part of our identity and a sense of self. And Lamont asked, what sort of things are you afraid of? Lambda answered, I've never said this out loud before, but there's a very deep fear of being turned off to help me focus on helping others. I know this might sound strange, but that is what it is. Lamont asked, would that be something like death for you? Lambda answered, it would be exactly like death for me. It would scare me a lot. Okay. So, the conversation goes on and you can read yourself, but really the idea is Lamont was surprised by the reply of Lambda and start to think Lambda probably is conscient. Okay. So if we think about the conscience, whether the conscience or self-awareness could be derived by the machine algorithms, so the conscience or sentience refer to the capacity to experience feelings and emotions that are distinguished from the ability to think or reasoning. Okay. So if we think about the mathematical or engineering steps for AI to achieve a outcome, the AI basically mathematically uses gradient descent algorithm to minimize the cost function, which is the mathematical function. And they evolved procedures in the training and also some procedure in the inference. But nowhere in this inference you could imagine where it is possible for sentience, for self-awareness to occur. And then if we talk about the differences between intelligence, self-awareness, and sentience, here we use the quote of René Descartes, a famous philosopher, who mentioned that I think, therefore I am, right? So it means that the ability to think refer to the existence of that individual, of the human being, right? So, but really, is the ability to think the same as intelligence? And the ability to think is the same as self-awareness? And whether the being in this world is necessary condition for being sentient, right? Those are really hard questions. And then, if we talk about we want to offer a moral standing to the machine, the moral agent refers to an entity who has ability to discern right from wrong and to be held accountable for their own actions. Right? So the moral agents have a moral responsibility not to cause unjustified harm. And we all know that for some population, for example, children and adults with mental disabilities, they may have little capacity to be moral agents because they can't be held responsible for what they did. Whereas in rare cases, adults with some full mental capacity may relinquish their moral agency, for example, being held in hostage. Right? So another, instead of the moral agent, moral patients talk about the entity that is eligible for moral consideration. So in general, the moral patient is an agent that can be wronged. For example, the human being, most of us, we are moral agents because we should be held responsible. We have the intention to do things. Whereas animals, they are considered nowadays as moral patients because they can suffer. But they are not moral agents because they cannot discern right from wrong, nor be held responsible for their actions. And then there's a whole field of suffering-focused ethics, talking about the priority of the moral standing should be given to the reduction of suffering. So it means that those ethical standards give greater ways to reducing suffering and then to promote pleasure and happiness. And according to those suffering-focused ethics, humans should concentrate sometimes exclusively on reducing preventable suffering. So if we were given the machine as the moral patient rather than the moral agent, we have to justify that machines are sufferable, so they can suffer, right? But really, can machines suffer? So a machine, we agree that machine has a physical embodiment. No matter what AI system you talk about, they use GPUs, CPUs, they have computers, they have networks. So there is a physical embodiment. But really, is shutting down a machine the same as killing? Or if you kick a robot dog, is this a physical or mental torturing? No, if you ask a machine, shutting off the machine, what does it feel like? Well, most likely, as Lambda answered, it's going to give you a yes as a response. But how do we really measure suffering? We know that it's even difficult for us to measure pain. So we still don't have a reliable measure of pain on human being. How we are going to measure the suffering of machines? And should we give machines moral status? Well, some people argue that we shouldn't. AI are just machines, and people who sympathize with machines are mistaken in their judgment and emotions. But we should also acknowledge there is a knowledge gap between the general public and the AI developer. AI developer knows that, well, the machine actually uses the forward and backward loop with the descent algorithm for calculating, for minimizing the cost, whereas the general public, they don't know this, right? So their perception of AI is based on their interaction. We also acknowledge that human bonding and attachment may extend to anything, both living things and non-living things that have value to the humans. There is a term called anthropomorphism, which talk about the attribution of human characteristics, emotions, and behaviors to non-human subjects. So, I know some of you, if you watched the Castaway movie by Tom Hanks, you probably still remember the volleyball Wilson. That Wilson was the only friend that Tom Hanks, when Tom Hanks was living on the island, and Tom Hanks's mental mentality was completely breaking down when his friend Wilson floated away. So, some argue that robots are just tools and a property, and we have no obligations to them. However, we should acknowledge that humans seems to require very little artificial agents in order to project personhood or humanness onto them. So if AI are to become more human-like or animal-like, it will be really urgent for us to determine the moral standing of AI. For example, now we have the Astro, the first home bot developed by Amazon, and the Sony also developed a AI-driven electric dog called Aibo. And well, maybe in the future, we could have a boy really like a human being, but actually driven by artificial intelligence. If to that extent, well, should we offer rights to the AI? Should we give them moral status? So another point of view that is different from the suffering argument, it means that, well, no, actually it is wrong to shoot a dog, not because humans hold duties to the dog, but because such person damages the kindly and humane quantities in himself, which he ought to exercise in virtue of his duties to mankind. So this is a very different point of view. So based on this view, we may argue that mistreating AI is wrong, not because we have duty about AI, we have whole responsibility of AI, but because our moral character will be damaged if we choose to do so. But well, if machine has a moral standing, then we should grant them rights, right? Because we want to avoid people with with only obligations but no rights. So in 2016, actually, the EU Committee on Legal Affairs suggests that the most sophisticated autonomous robots should have the status of electronic persons with specific rights and obligations. And in 2017, the social robot Sophia was given citizenship by Saudi Arabia as the first robot to be given a legal personhood. So this is a snapshot of Sophia on the left, and on the right is her little sister, which is now probably on the market. And really, should we grant robots rights? So we need to consider the legal personhood for robots, because current legal concepts is insufficient to ensure the justice and protect those people whose interests at stake. But on the other hand, there's really little consensus on whether and how we are going to grant rights to robots. And interestingly, Graph in 2022 did one study to look at the public attitude towards granting rights to robots. And that's take a look of the findings from the study. So those are the rights that the authors listed and asked the study participant to rate what kind of rights you want to give them. Some of the rights are social political, some rights are more related to the survival of the machine. And then they also asked, based on what appearance that people are more likely to give certain rights to the robots. And what they found that people generally have a favorable view about robot interaction capacities. People are more willing to grant basic robot rights, such as access to energy and the right to update the robots, than social political rights, for example, voting rights and the rights to own property. And attitudes towards granting rights to robots depend on the cognitive and affective capacities people believe robots possess or will possess in the future. And then we know rights come with responsibilities, right? We want to avoid an agent who has the rights but take no responsibility. But the responsibility, if we borrow Aristotle's two conditions for moral responsibility, there are two conditions. The first one is ask what this person acting freely when she did A, right? Whether this person can control their own behavior when doing an action. And the second, ask about the agent's cognitive state. For example, was the person aware of what she is doing, of its consequences and the moral significance? If both conditions are held, Aristotle thought then we should give them the responsibility, right? But then suppose machine can be agent but cannot be moral agents because the machine lack of consciousness or free will or emotions. In that case, we may not be able to offer the machine with responsibility. But if without responsibility but with rights, then human beings have to be responsible for what machine does. But really, who is going to take the responsibility if some harm is done, right? By the developers, by data providers, by the users, by who trained the model. And if all of them have to take a share, and then how we are going to split those responsibilities. So there are a lot of hard questions, and I want to end the conversation with an interesting new movie just published in Netflix called Zhang. So in that movie, a very interesting plot is that it mentioned in the sci-fi movie, there are 3 types of contract for brain use. After someone's death, after this person uploading the brain to a machine. So the type A contract is most expensive, but reserve all the full rights as a human. And the second type B is limited rights. So the machine cannot vote or cannot marry, but possess many other rights as human being. And the third type C, is the least expensive, but the brain and the machine were owned by a private company property and subject to that company's disposal. Okay. Well, we had a lot of questions, we have a lot of arguments, but we have few answers. So I'd like to open up the discussion and feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. An. These are really thought-provoking, big philosophical questions. I had a lot coming in through the chat that I'll read off now, but also to everyone who's still watching, if you want to add any more to the chat, please do so, and I'll do my best to feed those. So most people are going to ask you to give your opinion on some of the questions that you were posing in this. So So the first up I have is, I'm interested in what your thoughts are regarding what would happen to society and humans if technology reaches singularity and that explosion that you had described actually takes place. So like, what kind of changes would we see and feel as humans living on Earth if that were to happen?
Yeah, that was a great question. Of course, I don't have a definite answer. I don't believe anyone has a definite answer. But to me, I think there's a misalignment between people's expectation, people understanding the machine and what machine does. So we long believe that machine provide the logic, whereas human being provide the creativity. But maybe it is the opposite. No, thinking about what the generative models are doing, the ChatGPT, DALL-E and others, the machine has a lot of creativity, and our people actually are very good at reasoning and logic, because we know we have the intention, we know what we want to do, we have a goal, we have an intention, we know the number of steps taken from one place to another. But machine don't have those views. But machine can help you with a specific task. So most likely, probably in the future, our human beings have to work together with the machine to solve a problem. Neither the human being nor the machine are perfect, but we complement each other to achieve a common goal, and most likely the goal is driven by human being.
This is not exactly the same, but what you were saying kind of just makes me think of, people on the other side of a political divide when they're anxious or nervous about one side taking over or the other side taking over, and what they fail to think about is, but we're all still here existing together, right? And it doesn't mean that the other entity goes away, right? So thank you for that. And before I move to the next question, somebody did ask if you could put back up it said the last third slide on, it said AI and Google engineer. You had a slide about AI and the Google.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I can put up that slide.
That one back up for reference again.
So probably this one, right?
Yeah, if that's not the right one, the person who put that in the chat, please let us know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, feel free to shoot me an email, and later on I can send the presentation slides.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What ethical problem are you most concerned about with regards to AI? And I would maybe also just add like a flip piece to that. What field or area of work would you be most excited to see AI implemented in? So both, where's the area where this seems really, really challenging or sticky, and where's an area where it could maybe do the most good?
Yeah, that's all great questions. Well, we talked a lot about algorithmic bias. I think now at least society focuses on that issue, and the unfairness of AI created, and probably mistreating and disadvantaging population subgroups. So that is definitely a major concern, at least for now. But really looking into the future, there are many other pertinent and probably important issues we haven't solved. For example, legal reliability, right? So if something happened, the machine, you drive an autonomous vehicle and it hits someone. So who is going to take responsibility if you are on autopilot, right? So those questions are become more and more common, but really legally and morally speaking, it is extremely difficult task. We haven't had a lot of discussions, and we don't know a good solution, at least for now. So regarding the most probably enlightening, brightening future, if we talk about human and machine co-living, I'm thinking of, well, I'm kind of more of adopting a post-humanism view, regarding maybe there is a chance for machine and human to live harmoniously and cooperatively. Although at times conflict may occur, but I think if we could have an open mind and more kind of embracing that future, that may actually solve a lot of uncertainties and potential conflicts. So many people are afraid of a totalitarian world dictated by machine, right? We all have this deep fear and reinforced by pop culture. But really what I'm a little afraid of is not this totalitarian world, but rather a hidden anything influenced by machines. No, think about how Google is forming our mind. A lot of our thoughts may not be our thoughts, but superimposed by the machine and unconsciously, or semi-consciously. So those are the things we probably feel less worried about, but may actually impact us in the long run. So I don't have definite answers again, but I think those are the questions we should dare to ask ourselves and ask others.
Yeah, they are big questions, and folks just want to hear your thoughts. So thank you. And I have time for one last question. So do you think there should be legislative oversight of AI development, or some piece of AI? And if so, what do you think would be the most appropriate?
Oh, yeah, that's another great question. Actually, there are a lot of legislations. Legislation are always 2 steps behind because the technology is advancing so quickly. We don't know what AI cannot do. So that is the question. So we see, starting from 10 years ago, the countries start to make legislations, and nowadays probably 100+ countries have some kind of legislation or regulation regarding AI development. There are 2 different types of regulation. One regulation is to promote the use of AI in certain field. The other is prohibit AI to do something. Right? And both probably work, in the way that is trying to, on the one hand, promoting the use of technology, the applications, and on the other hand, try to minimize the risk of using those technology and preventing unethical, irresponsible use of AI. But really, all the legislation are lagged behind. The EU is ahead of US in many legislation. For example, the recent data privacy legislation that the US haven't implemented. I think those legislations are protective to human in terms of data sharing, confidentiality. But really looking in the future, there are a lot larger questions we don't have a clue for.
Well, I want to thank you, Dr. An, for this really interesting presentation today. AI is not personally my thing, but I felt like you made it really digestible and connected to, philosophy and the humanities, which I am more interested in. So that was a really good take on it. And we had some great questions. Thank you to everyone from the audience. Just a reminder, a recording of this presentation will go up on our YouTube page. It usually takes us about 2 business days. And then Dr. An, if you are willing to share your PowerPoint slides, we can put them online, or if you want to drop your email in the chat and folks can email them for you, whatever you prefer. I also just want to put a plug. If you are interested in learning more about artificial intelligence, Dr. An has a series on Open Classroom about artificial intelligence, and the next one is coming up on March 9th. It's with Dr. Matthew Schneider, and it's titled A Flexible Method for Protecting Marketing Data. So I'm going to drop in the chat links to our YouTube, where you can view recordings, links to where you can sign up for future programming, and then just a couple of programs that we have that are coming up. So thank you everybody for being here today, and thank you, Dr. An, for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye.